Hello, and welcome to another segment of the Coatesville Area Public Library's Oral History Project. I'm talking today with Mr. Marshall W. Connor, known in our community as Marty Connor, who's been around for a few years. We'll let him tell you how old he is. Marty has been very active in many organizations, both recreational and service-oriented, throughout his years in Coatesville. And he has quite an interesting past with quite a lot of interesting memories of Coatesville. Marty, as I looked over your biography, I see that there are quite a number of interests that you've had over the years and things that you've been active in. But the one thing that came to my attention first was the fact that you've been able to watch the changes in Coatesville as they've occurred. And I'm sure there are quite a lot of things that are different now in terms of structures and buildings, what have you, than they were when you were a young fella. I was wondering if you might enlighten us on some of those changes that you've seen over the years.
Well, I was born and raised in the east end of Coatesville at 749 East Lincoln Highway, and at that time where the Vic Abdel beer distributing building was formerly the Sunoco gas station. It was one of the first ones in the city of Coatesville. The area there has changed drastically from what it used to be. It was primarily the points of interest were Columbia Avenue School and Columbia Avenue Park. And some of the things that I remember about the park was the fact that it was a meeting place for all the teenagers at the time. We never had any problems with finding something to do. There was always something going on at the park. One of the things I remember about the park especially was they had a band shell that was down in the, I would say, the northeast corner of the park. And they used to have, during the summer, had a regular program of band concerts. And Shorty Ash was in charge of all the playgrounds in the city of Coatesville, and he was the one that was instrumental in keeping things going in that particular area. Another place that probably runs in my mind is what Gray's Grocery Store. It used to be at the corner, that would be the southwest corner of Pennsylvania Avenue and Lincoln Highway, where the Hess gas station is now. And that was the local proprietor. He lived in the area and had a grocery store there.
Up until when?
Oh, I'm guessing, but I would say in the middle 30s or early 40s, and he went out of business. Another place of interest was Tony's Barber Shop, which was Tony Pellegrino originally, and then his son took over, and it was Ray Pellegrino's barbershop for years, and now that has recently moved out of town, and it's under another proprietorship. I was recently on that tour that was a guided tour of the city of Coatesville in the evening, where they blocked off the streets from Lincoln Highway, 1st Avenue and Lincoln Highway to 3rd Avenue and Lincoln Highway, or 4th Avenue and Lincoln Highway. And I was amazed that all the years that I had lived in Coatesville, I never took the time to look up at the buildings that were there. And I was amazed at the architecture and the beauty of some of the buildings that we have in the city of Coatesville.
Some of them are quite striking.
It's unbelievable that they aren't appreciated more.
Yes, I agree.
Of course, the Brandywine Fire Company is still there, but it was also a place of interest because they had a bowling alley there. My dad was a volunteer fireman, and several times I had the opportunity as a young fellow to bowl there, and that was one of the big things of my life. Along with that, the YMCA was a local place of interest, and from the time I was, I would say, 9 years old up until senior high school, that was the place to go. We had gym classes 3 days a week, and Mr. Bickle was the physical education director, and J.I. Hoffman was the secretary of the YMCA, and And there was just something to do there all the time. One of the attractions was the greater Sunday afternoon meetings that J.I. Hoffman ran, and I can remember some of the notables that were there, like Will Rogers and Admiral Byrd, and that's just to mention a couple of them, but that he had probably all the famous people from all over the world at one time or another come there, and there was no admission charge. All there was a free will offering. And how he ever was able to get enough money together to pay these people to come here, I have no idea, but that was one of the Sunday afternoon attractions. Central Park was also a lively place. In the summertime, they used to have moonlight swims where you could go over there about 8 o'clock in the evening. The pool was usually open from 6 to 8 in the evening, but at 8 o'clock, that pool was cleared out, and they charged a 10-cent admission for a moonlight swim. And Shorty Ash used to have music playing, and there was some dancing, but little or no dancing, and a lot of swimming and a lot of good times and a lot of good memories from that. One of the things I mentioned, Columbia Avenue Park, the LGM organization, that's the Italian organization, used to have an annual parade, which was on Columbus Day every year. And the parade was something else to see. It was like 2 hours in length, and where I lived in East Lincoln Highway, it was an ideal place because our porch was elevated from Lincoln Highway, and so all the neighborhood used to gather on our porches to watch the parade. It was an ideal place to watch. And it ended up at Columbia Avenue Park with a band concert and a band show and usually an Italian band. And they played all Italian music. But the big thing was the fireworks display at the end of the evening.
And there were theaters in Coatesville then, movie theaters.
That's correct. The Palace Theater had serials every week, and mostly cowboy pictures. All the famous ones, Hoot Gibson and Ken Maynard and Tom Mix, and almost everyone that you could remember. They had the shows there every Sunday afternoon. And one of the things that I remember is that my next door neighbor was named Savage. Ben and Lillian Savage lived next door, and they had 4 children. And every Saturday afternoon, it was my job to babysit with the kids and take them to the Palace Theater. The admission was 10 cents to get in, and we always got a quarter because there was 15 cents for refreshments after the movies. Mm-hmm. And an interesting sidelight is the fact that the next to the oldest boy, who was David Savage, married and lived in the Kenneth Square area, and his daughter was the famous Jessica Savage, the newscaster. And I somehow always, tell people that I'm a name dropper, and I always say that I knew where she came from. In fact, my sister is Mrs. Savage's namesake. Her name is Lillian Adele Hadley, and that was Mrs. Savage's name.
The Palace Theater was the first one to go.
Yes, that's right. And the auditorium was there for years, and they showed all the old time, that we consider old time movies now, but the current movies at the particular time. And one of the things at the auditorium theater, they always had a news on, and they always had a serial on Saturday afternoons, and some kind of a short subject of interest besides the regular feature that they had. So it was a bargain, and I think you had to pay 25 cents to get there.
I know the auditorium was on the site of what is now Coatesville Towers, because I remember going there myself as a child. Where was the Palace Theater?
Well, the Palace Theater was directly opposite 2nd Avenue and Lincoln Highway. And I think there's either a religious bookstore there now, or it was, at that time, it was next to a famous confectionery in town, which was Laggy's Brothers. They had a soda fountain, and they made homemade candy, and they were famous for their candy that they made there. I'm trying to think, at the, you mentioned the Towers. That was the site of the old Coach and Four Inn
Yes.
And the YMCA was a little bit west of that. There was like an alleyway between the two buildings there. And in fact, in the early days, the YMCA had dormitories up on the third and fourth floors of the building, and a lot of the men who started their careers at Luke and Steel Company had rooms there, and they ate in the YMCA cafeteria. And there, another area that would be of interest to, as a part of this video, would be the area known as Margolies Heights. That was an area east of 13th Avenue that ran from Olive Street all the way up over the hill to the old Shallcross Farm. And in my youth, when I was a teenager, Callan Bridge was under repair, and major repairs, and so they had to build what they called a detour at the time. And everybody knew Olive Street, which is known as Olive Street now, as the detour. And there was an old house there, which was formerly the Margolies Mansion, that was considered a haunted house at the time. It was unoccupied for years prior to the time that I came around, and we used to, have games about whether to go in there or not because it was a haunted house. But that whole hill was bare, and there was a small riding academy on the side of the hill that I recall, but it was a favorite place for teenagers to roller skate because you had an unobstructed area where you could go for, which is now like 6 or 7 blocks, with no interruption. And after the bridge was built, there was no traffic there because there was no reason for anybody to use that particular one. Now, that whole hill is filled with the residential area known as Margolies Heights. On top of the hill was a part of the old Shallcross Farm, which is just on the south side of Old Westchester Road. And that's where my present residence is. Robin Road and Cardinal Drive, they were all a part of the and Valmont Drive, that was all a part of the old Shallcross Farm.
So we always come home to our roots. Eh?
Yeah. Can't leave.
Tell me a little bit about what you did in high school. I know you were very active in athletics.
Well, I was secretary of my class, and we've had a very active class as far as reunions are concerned, from 10 years on up until the last one was 55 years. You mentioned something about my age. Well, I'm 76 years old and still going strong. In high school, I played varsity basketball for 2 years and was on the soccer team, goalie on the soccer team for 2 years, varsity, and on the track team for 3 years. After that, I matriculated to Williamson Free School of Mechanical Trades, which is just outside of Media, Pennsylvania. And while I was there, I played football, basketball, and baseball all 3 years. And I earned 9 varsity letters. And I don't want to brag, but more recently, last year, I was accepted into the Williamson Hall of Fame, Athletic Hall of Fame. And there was only 4 people that have gotten into that particular area.
Well, with that honor, we'll let you brag all you want.
Well, that was a great part of my life, too. And a former resident of the city of Coatesville and a great athlete was our coach, and one of our teachers was Herb Pearl. I think people in the city of Coatesville would be interested in knowing that he taught at Williamson School for a period of about 10 to 12 years. And during that time, I was played on a basketball team that was undefeated. We played 26 games and were undefeated the whole season. And he used to brag about that particular fact that he only had one undefeated team, and one of the boys from Coatesville played on that team. He always remembered his roots also. But he was a great athlete and a fine, fine gentleman.
After Williamson, you moved on into the service.
That's right. I was in the Air Force, bombardier, navigator, radar operator, and second lieutenant. And I wasn't in action. I was discharged from the service shortly after the dropping of the atomic bombs.
Mm-hmm. Where were you stationed?
Well, you name it, and I was there. During my training started out in Greensboro, North Carolina, then to Williamsport, Pennsylvania for a college training detachment, then to Nashville, Tennessee for classification, and then I started my pre-flight school at Maxwell Field, Alabama, and from there I went to Bombardier School, Big Spring, Texas, and then to radar at Ellington Field as an officer, and then to radar school in Phoenix, Arizona, or outside of Phoenix, at Tempe, which is quite a well-known place now because that's where Arizona State is, and they're famous for their athletics there. And then I was assigned to an overseas unit at Lake Charles, Louisiana, and after we were ready to be discharged, they told us what our mission was going to be overseas, and our particular group was a suicide mission. We were to fly A-26 medium bombers that were painted black, and all our missions were at night, and we had to come in on the deck, which meant we would fly in at less than 1,000 feet and pick up the targets by radar and drop flares on the targets for the B-29s coming in at high altitude bombing, and then get back to our flat top the best way we could. And it was quite a relief to know that that mission was never completed.
Yes, I can imagine.
When I was discharged, I came home and was very active in various singing organizations. I started out in the Washingtonians, which was a group of men, 60 men, and Bob McFall was the director, and DeWitt Pearson was the accompanist. And during the war, Bob had an all-girls chorus that used to go around to the various service fields and entertain the troops. And when he came home, he was not too happy. He told me one time that with directing 50 or 60 girls. So he started this men's chorus, and we later accepted 12 girls into our group in order to be able to sing a lot of the Fred Waring arrangements. After being together for 15 or 20 years, DeWitt and Bob wanted relief, so the organization was disbanded for about a year or two, and Bob couldn't stand to be out of it, so he wanted back in it again, and he started the American Legion Chorus, which was sponsored by the local American Legion. And we were together for about 2 years, and primarily a mixed chorus. It was no longer a male chorus with 12 girls, and it was a mixed chorus. And then during that time, we broke away from the American Legion and formed what has been later known as the Coatesville Choraleers. Coatesville Choraleers were together for 40 years and disbanded in 1995. And two of the original charter members, that was Nelson Hagel and myself, were with the organization the whole time, except Nels dropped out for about 2 or 3 years. And we had various directors during that time. We had Ed Irwin, who was a music instructor and a local boy from, he taught music at North Brandywine School. And then we had a fellow by the name of Tim Lutz, who was the director of music in Downingtown, who is now connected with Disneyland in California as a producer of their shows. We had Elida Menifee, who is now presently in our Coatesville School District in the Cash Intermediate School as a music instructor. And it seems as though we started out with like 55 or 60 members. Oh, by the way, Steve McFall, Bob's son, took over when Bob could no longer physically handle the chorus, and Steve had it for several years. And we had great times. We had an annual concert every year. In fact, when Bob had the Washingtonians, it was not unusual for us to have a sellout for a Friday night, a Saturday night, and a Sunday afternoon.
Yes.
And then have people come Monday for a fourth concert. And of course now the people no longer want to commit themselves to an hour and a half a week for rehearsal time. So some of these organizations have just become a thing of the past. I've been active in the local church, in our Methodist church. Been superintendent of the Sunday school for 30 years now, and member of the choir, and still singing in the choir, even though my voice is no longer what it used to be. And one of the things in high school, we had Larry Ginner as a music instructor. He had the Meister Singers for 2 years, and at that time we competed in, well, we didn't compete, we were part of the all-state chorus, which included the entire state. Now it is divided up into regions, I believe, and they have like an East chorus and a West chorus. And I participated in that for 2 years. Then John Raymond took Larry Ginner's place, and Larry went to Westchester University as a music instructor. And of course, John Raymond is famous. When he left Coatesville, he went to Lower Merion School, and from there to Lafayette College, and he's a director emeritus there, and also a famous chorus in Philadelphia. The name slips by. I can't remember the name, but he's also director emeritus there. And he's the one that started the honor solo thing here in Cache, or in Coatesville School District. And I happened to be the first honor soloist back in 1938. And since that time, down through the years, it's one of the highlights of the Christmas show every year.
Yes, it certainly is.
And they still sing the same number, the same.
Yes.
And there are a lot of famous people in the city of Coatesville who have been in the music organizations and who are still around,
Marty, most of your working life has been spent in the electrical field. Tell us a little bit about the changes that you've seen with Philadelphia Electric over the years.
Well, it's not the same place as it used to be. Of course, everybody that retires from an organization thinks that it should be run a lot different than it's being run.
Yes.
But they have to keep up with the times, and with this deregulation that has just recently started, we don't really know what we're getting into, I don't believe, and we'll know in a couple of years, but I have a suspicion that it might end up the same way as it did when they broke up the AT&T monopoly. That probably the only thing that you'll experience is an increase in rates as opposed to what you have now.
Your position with the company was?
I was a
engineering?
Engineering technical assistant, and I was known as the voltage man in the Western Division, and I investigated low and high voltage complaints and lightning and radio and television interference and that type of thing. I come from a long line of utility workers. My father was a line foreman here in the city of Coatesville in the old Chester Valley Electric Company that was purchased by Philadelphia Electric Company, and a lot of the people that worked for Chester Valley Electric Company became employees of the Philadelphia Electric Company. And one of the ones that I remember was, I don't recall his first name. His name was McVaugh. His last name was McVaugh. And his son graduated from Coatesville High School and later became a famous heart surgeon as Dr. McVaugh. He was connected with the University of Pennsylvania, then later at Lankenau Hospital, and then his more recent years at back at the University of Pennsylvania. And then he is now retired, but he is one of the family of the McVaughs that formerly worked for Chester Valley Electric Company. The changes that have taken place primarily is that Philadelphia Electric Company is no longer a family-oriented industry. It used to be that it wasn't unusual for, at the time I was working for, to have 3 brothers out of the same family all working for the same organization, or cousins, or everything seemed to be family oriented. They had an employees association, and usually the employees association, everything that they did 4 or 5 times a year was family oriented. That is no longer true as far as I know. I don't want to be quoted on this, but you have more or less become a number, you know, as opposed to a person. And that seems to be typical in most industry anymore. You no longer have that personal contact with the people who are in power.
You've been associated with the Coatesville Senior Center for a number of years. In fact, have been a president of it for a while. Tell us about your affiliation there.
Well, Bill Wilbraham was the chairman of the building committee, and I don't recall exactly the year, but it has to be about 12 or 14 years ago now that there was a small group of people, an ad hoc committee, so to speak, decided that there ought to be a senior center, and they originally met in the Coatesville Library as a small group, and then they later purchased the old American Legion building on 5th Avenue between Lincoln Highway and Chestnut Street. At the time they bought that building, they were able to secure a loan from a local bank and paid off the mortgage in a year's time. 10 years later, after having built, I would say, upwards of $150,000 addition or more, we were able to pay the mortgage off during the time that I happened to be president of the board of directors. The interesting thing about the Coatesville Area Senior Center is the fact that they they average somewhere between 40 and 50 people at lunch every day. It's a regular meal that's subsidized by the county Office of the Aging, and it was for a time a daycare center for elderly people. Physically and mentally handicapped people came there at 9:30 in the morning and stayed until 3:30 in the afternoon, and they were taken care of by the local part of the staff. They have 10 paid people on the staff, and we have a director and an assistant director, and then 3 main people who take care of the program and the business area. The board of directors is very active, and I was informed at the time that somebody asked me to go on the board that don't think you're going to be on the board and just be a board member. You're going to be a working board member. Well, I've certainly found that out over the years. But it's been a real good experience in my life. I've met a lot of people that I had never known really personally before. You know, I knew who they were and knew their name and everything like that, but when you become involved in the various projects the organization puts on, you learn to know them better. One of the accomplishments of the Senior Center is the fact that every year the Board of Directors, there's 24 members of the Board of Directors, and we have an average attendance at our meetings, monthly meetings, of 20 or 22 people, which is amazing for a Board of Directors. But like I said, you're a working board member, and so there are always projects involved. One of the most recent projects that I was in charge of was the hoagie sale, and we hold it twice a year on Election Day. And the one that was held just this past Tuesday, we sold 1,100 hoagies. It takes a lot of planning and a lot of coordination with a lot of people. But when you come on the board, you're expected to do that, and most of the people do it voluntarily and are very happy to do it.
The Senior Center has always had a presence with Buffalo Bill Days, which has been in the past an event in Coatesville, and perhaps you'd share some of that involvement with us.
Well, of course, most everything that's involved in Coatesville, except our relationship with the City Council, I hate to say, but we are no longer, or we have never been, financially supported by the City of Coatesville in any way, as far as the council or appropriating any money toward the ongoing program of the senior center. Our funds come primarily from the Office of Aging from the county, and their source of revenue is primarily from the Pennsylvania Lottery as far as appropriations are concerned. We do get quite a bit of money from the United Fund, which is a big thing. But the program that we present is available to everybody over 55 years of age are eligible to come and use the facility and participate in all the programs. And it's amazing how many people have been helped down through the years and look forward to the things that go on at the senior center.
Marty, I understand that you are a 1994 recipient of the Charles L. Daller Award, given to a member providing outstanding service to our community. What did you have to do to qualify for that award?
Well, Charlie Daller was originally, he was an employee of Luke and Steel Company, but he was always active, very active in the community life, and he was past president of the Optimist Club. In fact, I think he held an office in the state and national organizations. And his wife was secretary of the original board that started the senior center. And because of his outstanding community service, they decided, when I say they, the senior center decided to provide an award on a yearly basis for the outstanding volunteer to the senior center. And they named it after Charlie Daller because of his service to the community. That is an ongoing award every year, and it's presented at the annual spring dinner. We've had several noted speakers there at the annual dinner, and one of them was the former the president of Luke and Steel Company, William Van Sant. And there's a plaque provided, and your name is on the plaque, and it's in the lobby of the senior center for everyone to see. One of the things that the board of directors do in relationship to income for the senior center, they raise in the vicinity of $20,000 a year in these functions, such as the hoagie sale and card parties and spaghetti dinners and senior benefits. And the only thing that we have problems with is the fact that we want more people to use the facilities that we have and profit by the benefits that we offer. And I don't know what you have to do to attract people to come there during the day. We have the facilities unbelievable. We have two pool tables. We have a big conference room with a large screen TV and an ongoing, we have a library, and we have an ongoing entertainment program or activity program that's provided. And the only problem we have is there aren't enough people participating. So if there's some way we can get the message out to the local community to come there and use our facilities, we would be happy about that.
Yes. In keeping with the theme of community service, I know you're still very actively involved with some school projects here in our school district, as well as Meals on Wheels and Operation Thanksgiving and Operation Christmas. Tell us a little more about those involvements.
Well, recently I really haven't been a member of an active organization connected with the school, but I formerly taught a basic electricity course at the Votech School for a period of 12 years. And recently, the Parents Music Club in Coatesville is always looking for ways of raising funds. So I was contacted to be a part of a committee that was for raising funds. And the first meeting that I went to, I submitted the idea of getting a big name band to come to the city of Coatesville. I said, you know, the kids today don't realize what we consider good music. And so we went about contacting the Glenn Miller orchestra to come here for a concert, and it was a sellout. A year later, I think we had the Tommy Dorsey Band come, and more recently they had a dance and a concert by the Grease Band, which wasn't as well attended as the big bands. And more recently, I understand the Parents Music Club have been trying to contact Glenn Miller to come back, and he's booked up for a year and a half in advance, so it's not possible to get him back. But they're very active in the cavalcade of bands now, and as a fundraiser. And I don't say they don't need the additional revenue, but when they sponsor a cavalcade of bands, the income from that is pretty sizable. I haven't, any time that I've been called on to participate in any of the committees on the future of the school or anything connected with the school system, I naturally have volunteered my services, and I had three daughters who all graduated from Coatesville High School, and we're all teachers in the Coatesville School District at one time, and there's one of them still second grade school teacher at East Fallowfield School. Mm-hmm. So I have an ongoing interest all the time for the school and the school system.
You've been involved in recent years with the Meals on Wheels program and also with Operation Thanksgiving and Operation Christmas. Those programs are relatively new. I'm sure they weren't around many years ago. You've seen them come into being, and I'm wondering if you can share with us your thoughts.
Well, the Meals on Wheels program is a program that provides a nutritious meal for a person who is unable to provide either cooking facilities or being able to take care of themselves in order to prepare a meal. This was started I would say 20 years ago. And in fact, my wife has been an active in it for 18 years. And more recently, she sort of dragged me into the program, and I've been doing it for more than 10 years now. And it's a rewarding program. There are 8 people on a daily basis who take meals that are prepared at the local Brandywine Hospital, and they go to 4 different areas in the Coatesville community. We serve approximately 40 meals a day, 5 days a week. So we're talking about 200 meals a week, and if you multiply that by 52 weeks in a year, you can see that it's quite a large project. And it's run on a county basis. There are, not every part of the Chester County is served by Meals on Wheels, but a good portion, better than half of the county is served, has facilities for serving Meals on Wheels. It also provides a needed thing for having people visited on a daily basis, health-wise.
Yes.
There have been lots of times when the Meals on Wheels representative takes a meal to a house and finds a person incapacitated for some reason or another, health-wise or whatever, and they're able to get the right organization there to take care of the needs of the person involved. And it's a daily check. You know, the families of the people who receive the Meals on Wheels don't necessarily have to be there every day because they know a representative of the Meals on Wheels will be there at lunchtime and find that the participant is able to take care of themselves for that particular day. This program, they have an annual luncheon every year, and I was amazed at the number of people that are volunteers throughout the county. There's some 500 people involved in volunteering their services on a daily basis. Now, we only serve like 2 or 3 days a month, but you can imagine what a job it would be for the person that's coordinating the number of people who serve the Meals on Wheels. They have to provide 8 people a day, 5 days a week, and it's quite a problem. So we not only provide it for 3 days a week, or 3 days a month, but also any time that we're called on to substitute for somebody else that can't make it.
Mhm.
You mentioned Operation Thanksgiving and Operation Christmas.
Yes.
For some years, I don't know how many years in the city of Coatesville, there have been various organizations, service organizations such as the Lions Club or the Rotary Club, the Optimists, the Union, Steel Company Union, that would provide meals at, or a basket of food at Thanksgiving and Christmas time. And we found out, when I say we, there was a group headed by Pastor Memoriam of the Olivet United Methodist Church, along with the Salvation Army, that coordinated the effort about, I would say, maybe 7 or 8 years ago now. Instead of having all the various organizations provide meals and some of the people getting 3 or 4 baskets, they decided that there should be some coordination. So these organizations still participate in the fact that they donate some of the money for the food that's provided at Operation Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's quite an operation also, because you have some 500 families that are provided a substantial meal at Thanksgiving and also at Christmas time. By that I mean they're given a turkey that's 10 pounds or greater, and a whole bag full of canned goods and various things to give a complete meal. And when you have 500 baskets that have to be, or bags that have to be, filled, and the food ordered and things like that, it takes a lot of people. So there are about 25 people who do the packing, and then there are another 25 people a different 25 people who come in the next day for the transportation of the food. Now the people are screened by Mrs. Spann, who runs the local food cupboard, and she knows just about every family in the city of Coatesville. And so the people are screened, and they have to meet a certain criteria before they're eligible to receive this basket or bag of food at Thanksgiving and Christmas time. The coordination between the Salvation Army and Reverend Memoriam and a really hard-working crew of volunteers for that particular program, I don't think get enough credit in the city of Coatesville. And I don't believe that the people, when you hear the term Operation Thanksgiving and Operation Christmas, they don't realize the scope of the program. When you think of 500 needy families in the city of Coatesville and the Coatesville area, that tells you something, that there are poor people out there who can't provide for themselves at that particular time of the year. And it gives them a sense of knowing that somebody cares for them,
Yes.
Excuse me.
And thank goodness for people such as yourself.
Well, it's rewarding, and knowing that you're doing something for somebody else, and not having to have somebody pay you for everything you do.
Marty, you've been associated with the Coatesville Alumni Association for quite a number of years, and I'm sure you've got some interesting stories to tell us there.
Well, the Alumni Association is no longer in existence, but back about the time I was involved in it, it was around the early 1950s. And at that particular time, Gladys Worth was the teacher here at school, had the business course, and she was the driving force behind the Alumni Association at that particular time. We had an advisory board of 3 people who handled what they called the Carl O. Benner Student Loan Fund. This fund started with Gladys Worth selecting 3 popular girls from the senior class who she thought were the leaders of the class. And we now have what is known as the homecoming queen, but this was probably the pioneer stages of what later became the homecoming queen. These 3 girls were selected, and each one were allowed to select 10 other girls. and they had one particular day that was designated as Tag Day. And they went out with their little cans and they asked people for donations and would give them a tag. And on the homecoming football game, that evening of the homecoming football game, they always had a dance. And at that dance, the girl that her team had selected or collected the greatest amount of money was selected as Miss Coatesville High School. And that later became, they no longer sold tags, but they later got into the homecoming queen. And that's primarily a popularity contest, I understand. Anyway, that particular fund was used as a student loan fund, and anybody could borrow from, any high school graduate could borrow from that fund, and the amount was $300 a semester for any 2 semesters of their college career. Well, as you all know, $300 is practically nothing now as far as education is concerned. But down through the years, there were a lot of people who used that money, and they could not have graduated from college had they not been able to have access to that money. But what happened was we had several bad loans, along with the fact that there was no activity in that fund at all for a period of about 15 to 20 years. During that time, we passed through a period of high interest rates, and we had the money invested. And at one time, the interest rate was somewhere around 15%. Consequently, that fund grew to an amazing figure of $85,000. Since there was no activity on the thing at all, and I think Alex Endy, a local lawyer, or local judge rather, was the last president, I think, of the Alumni Association. And he got together 6 or 7 people who were formerly either presidents or officers in the Alumni Association, and suggested that we turn that money over to the Rotary organization for a scholarship of some kind. And since the Rotary Club had nothing to do with the raising of the funds, we were pretty adamant about giving that money up to another organization. So we decided to disband what was formerly known as the Coatesville Alumni Association and form what they called the Carl O. Benner Scholarship Fund. And I'm president of that board of directors, and there's 3 former presidents of the Alumni Association, a former secretary and a former treasurer of the Alumni Association. And we handle that fund in the form of a $6,000 scholarship that's given to a student of the graduating class who meets certain criteria that we have designated. There have been about 6 or 7 recipients now of that scholarship. In fact, we have had 3 people who have graduated from college who used that particular scholarship.
You mentioned Gladys Worth earlier, and I know that she and her sister Ruth were instrumental in operating a gathering place in the Coatesville area for a time. Tell us about the tea house.
What is now the site of the Coatesville Library at 5th Avenue and Lincoln Highway used to be a little tea room, and it was called the 5th Avenue Tea Room. And Gladys Worth and her sister, while she was teaching school, ran that, and that was a famous meeting place for ladies, or primarily ladies in the afternoon for a tea room. They would go there for tea and cookies or things like that. And it's interesting to know that that particular area was, after the tea room went out of business, they tore the building down, and I think Mo Margolies owned that particular property. And he used to let the American Legion run their summer carnival there in that particular area, along with where the central office of the Bell Telephone Company
That would have been
is
in
now.
what years?
Oh, I don't know when the library was started, but prior to that, it would be back in the 30s, late 30s, early 40s, I guess.
Were there any other gathering places in Coatesville that were quite prominent? Places for teens?
Oh, yes. One of the famous places for high school students was Sandy's Drugstore, 8th Avenue and Lincoln Highway. And also Dick Gibney's at 6th Avenue and Main Street.
Yes.
That used to be the hangout. And it's unfortunate now that the young teenagers can't meet in a place like that and feel safe on the streets of the city of Coatesville. But at that time, it wasn't unusual for kids to walk 4 or 5 blocks from their home to Sandy's or to T-Ty's Drugstore at Chester Avenue and Main Street, or Dick Gibney's at 6th Avenue and Main Street. In fact, in the basement of Sandy's Drugstore, they used to have booths there. And same way at Dick Gibney's, and at lunchtime, lots of times at Dick Gibney's, they had music and you could have dancing at while you were having your lunch there at the drugstore. That's Sandy's has been famous down through the years, and of course Joe and his brother run 2 different businesses there at the corner. It's no longer a drugstore, but Sandy was formerly a member of the board of directors of the school board for a long time. And he was always active in anything that was connected with the city of Coatesville and the community.
Well, Marty, I want to thank you for being with us today. We've enjoyed talking with Marty Connor, a true Coatesvillian through and through, and someone that we're glad to have as a part of our community.
I appreciate the opportunity to come because I love the fact that I was born and raised in the city of Coatesville, and when I go on trips and people say, "Where are you from?" I don't say I'm from Philadelphia or some other large city. I tell them I'm from the city of Coatesville. And it's amazing how many people know where the city of Coatesville is. And if you say Philadelphia, well, it's just a big area, but I always make it a point to let people know that I'm from the city of Coatesville, and I'm proud of that fact.
And we're glad that you are too. Thank you again, Marty.
You're welcome.